Present.
Trustee Woody.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome
Good
to
morning.
our meeting. The minutes of our last meeting of November 29th, 2017 were posted on the website, and I trust that everyone has had an opportunity to review them. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no corrections, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Trustee Woody. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Trustee Jackson. All those in favor of approval of the minutes by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposes? There being none, the motion carried. What we're going to have next is an update from our Dean of the School of Law School and Associate Dean Jackson. Provide us an update on the bar passage rate and our next steps. As we know from the committee that in the February bar exam, our passage rate was 36.7%. Our passage rate the last time in July of 17 was 51.3%. The dean has briefed us in the past about steps to improve our bar passage rate. We're just trying to get an idea as to what's going on. Why does he think we did not do as well as we would have liked to have done, and what steps we are going to take to make sure we're on the upward trend. With that, Dean Purnell.
Yeah.
Okay now?
You all now.
All right. I'll try not to use my outside voice. As noted by the chair, we are certainly looking at the February bar results and talking about that. And what I'd like to do with the committee is essentially give a two-part presentation. The first part would be to look at the February bar results in light of some of the specific questions the chairman just raised. The second part will be look at the initiatives that are taking place in the College of Law regarding bar passage in general and specifically in reaction to the bar rates. For those who may not be familiar, and when we talk about bar exam, we're talking about the Florida bar. Florida bar exam is administered 2 times a year, once in February and once in July. The February bar exam is typically the smaller of the 2 bar exams. The bulk of the graduates, certainly recent graduates, are sitting for the bar exam will in fact sit for the July bar exam. As indicated, our February bar performance, which involved 30 first-time bar takers, separating out first time from repeat. Of the 30 takers, 11 passed for a bar pass rate of 36.7%. In understanding that number, we need to look at a couple of factors. One, the bar pass rate throughout the state of Florida has had tremendous ups and downs, and mainly downs in the last couple of years. And in a moment, I'll talk specifically about the one particular area that causes probably the greatest concern. When we put the February bar exam results into that context, I would ask the committee again to note that Lower bar pass rates for the state of Florida have been relatively distant since 2014. For us, since 2016, we've seen some significant declines in bar pass rate. Again, and that speaks primarily to both, a combination of both exams. Regarding this, the February exam, an additional point that I would raise, point out to the committee. We have well, first of all, let me point out, and not that it changes our concern and our need for action regarding bar results. We're not the lowest in terms of bar pass rate. That was University of Florida. But I think that all the institutions who are looking at bar results are becoming very concerned. Nationally, we are seeing some of the lowest bar pass rates. California just last week posted probably the lowest bar pass rates in its history. We do have, as many of you are aware, we've had some past initiatives that help support our bar pass efforts. One of those initiatives is a program that we refer to as the BEST program, which is a program comprised of some intense bar exam preparation skills that are delivered between the time of graduation and taking the bar exam, but also supported throughout the academic year by various programming steps. We've had a history of success with that program, and when we look at the February bar results, we note that the pass rate for the best students was higher at 45%, but we also note that of the 11 individuals who passed the February bar, 10 of them were best participants. And so only one of the non-best participants passed the bar exam. We still are looking at some ways in which we can vamp up that course, and some of that will be touched on later on as we integrate the best initiatives into our overall curriculum efforts. But I think that when we look at the level of participation of our best students in the for this past February bar, I would also note that the participation, that is the looking at the number of bar takers in February, participation in the BEST program, that for this past February, the participation rate was 73%, which was up dramatically from 2017, 51%. So we were getting some significant improvement in participation in a program that seems to have a significant impact on the test takers. Now, looking at exactly what is the challenge that our students, and indeed students across the country, are facing, those of you who may have some familiarity with the bar exam know that it has several components. One of those components is a multiple choice objective question base that's known as the multi-state bar exam, MBE. The MBE scores for the state of Florida have been substantially down, as they are across the country. And when we look at our February bar results and try to determine where were our students hurt the most, it clearly was in the MBE area. And so as we turn to initiatives to deal with that, and again, Dean Jackson's presentation will talk about some of those. I would also add that in looking at what happened with the February bar results immediately after the results were released, I met with the students in separate meetings, with students, with faculty, with staff, and with alumni. Talk about the bar exam, bar preparation, their perceptions of issues, and we've incorporated those comments into much of what Dean Jackson is going to talk about. But let me also say that in addition to her comments, we've engaged in some other initiatives that I think go to much of the of what has been the problem area with the bar exam. One of the things I think is very important to remember is, and I know there's been a lot of talk about, say, like the BEST program and the programs. There is no one program that can basically sprinkle magic dust on graduates and make them all pass the bar. It just doesn't happen that way. And no 6-week program, 10-week program, indeed no one semester program can do that. It needs a more comprehensive approach to that. So we've looked at a number of things, again, considering the input we had from individuals who have concern about the bar process, and have already begun initiating a number of critical steps. One, we have looked at the issue, and this was raised by students and alums, of our course scheduling in terms of the substantive courses that are part of that represent the subjects that are tested on the bar exam. Although, quite frankly, most of the difficulty that individuals have on the bar exam is not lack of substantive knowledge, basically how they use it and how they identify issues and so forth. But one of the concerns that students raise, certainly, is their access to courses throughout the curricula in the second and third year of law school, fourth year in the case of evening students, and whether or not there were conflicts in that scheduling and ample opportunity to take those courses. So, my new Associate Dean, Dean Boothberry, has worked with our upcoming schedule to eliminate, as much as possible, those course scheduling conflicts, so that students have ample shot at the subject matter covered that are also covered on the bar exam. The one additional an additional step that we've taken that may not have benefited the February bar exam takers as much as it will those who are sitting for July and future, is that we designated at the beginning of an academic counselor who can help guide all our students into course selections that will be consistent with increasing their chances for success on the bar exam, and to come up with individual course and law education plans for them to meet their needs, and that has generally received high marks in terms of that position. Additionally, we looked at this issue even before the bar results came out, and certainly since the February bar result, of this MBE problem or challenge that students are facing. And again, I think Dean Jackson's comments will talk about how we've integrated our response into the program. But one of the things that we've done in this calendar year is to make sure we do have a course in the law school curriculum on the MBE specifically, excuse me, specifically on MBE and MBE style questions. What we've done, and I asked the Associate Dean to do, is to make sure that we have sufficient number of course offerings, that students who are being counseled to take the course have that course available. And so we are now at a point where we have that course offered 4 times, two times each semester, day and in the evening. Students who've taken the course have indicated that it's been extremely valuable to them. And students are, we've looked at the enrollment numbers on that, and I think I was concerned that not enough students were taking that course. So we want to make sure of its availability. Additionally, I am going to be raising with the faculty this fall possibility of making that course a required course. That's going to require some realigning of resources, dealing with whether or not we want to have a required course, whether or not we have the faculty support in terms of permanent faculty members to do that, but that certainly may help to some extent with that effort. Additionally, when we look at the exam performance, particularly in terms of issue identification, essay writing, much of the underlying work that needs to be done for that, even before individuals engage in the BEST program, needs to take place in the academic courses that the students take throughout their legal education. We are engaged now in a small sections program, so that every law student has a small section that allows the faculty member more opportunity to interact with the students, to put more written requirements, more one-on-one reviews with those students, and that in combination again with the resources we're making available to the faculty that will be touched on momentarily, will help to focus on not only the substance of the law, but the nature of the questions, style of the questions that are being presented to our students. I might also add along that line, and this is an arrangement we're finalizing right now for next academic year, and this goes, it's not just bar exam, this goes throughout the curriculum, because the obligation of college law is students, certainly the bar exam, passage of the bar is a critical central point to legal education. It's not the only point. And so in making a good law graduate and consequently a good bar taker, we also are paying more attention to their writing skills. So we are having contracting for a series of writing labs that will take place, drawing in resources from some of the other providers in the Orlando area, a series of writing workshops, exercises, labs for students in the future. We know that we have about 100 people that we anticipate will be taking the July bar exam, and certainly our BEST program is working with them.
How many students are actually participating? Out of that 100, going to be taking part in the BEST program for prep for the July bar?
Of the people who are currently taking the bar exam, and again, based on what our past numbers, about 75% of those would be participating. Again, some of the, when we say part of the challenge with that, as much as that participation happens after they've graduated, we know the people who've registered for the exam and historic pattern. I think we are looking at about 75% of those individuals, or 75 out of 100, we would expect to be participating in the BEST program, and participation meaning not just the programs now, but the summer program or the pre-bar exam program as well. We have made contact with every student multiple times to encourage their participation in the BEST program. the communications come from the program, come from me, come from other individuals, and I've asked our program to do one-on-one follow-up with all of our students who are anticipating taking the bar exam to get their full cooperation in the program, and part of that full cooperation involves doing more than, I think I've used this phrase with the committee before, more than drive-by participation, showing up for one session and not coming back for others. So that has required some intense effort to try to get those students on board to do that. We know that a lot of getting the
Dr. Ross?
Mr.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
If when of the cohort that took it in February didn't pass, they have the option of taking it.
yes.
Now the question is, will that count it in our overall inventory in terms of student taker, test taker, those who did not participate in the BEST program, that other 20 or so? Was there any efforts to engage something like that or similar to that to get better prepared time around?
Yes, I've been speaking primarily about the first-time takers. For those repeat takers, group that you're referring to, our bar support efforts are made available to them. For example, one of the things we've done this year is purchase prior bar exam questions, the MBE questions, to provide a base for preparation. That's been made available not only to our current students, but to repeaters. Repeaters are included and invited to participate in the BEST program in terms of its exercises as well. So because our overall bar passage rate, which would include repeaters, is important to us for accreditation, is important to us just because we care about those students. We have made efforts to reach them, and in fact, currently in the program of the instructors that we have in the BEST program, I believe there's 2 instructors right now that are working with repeaters almost exclusively.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Trustee Woody. Dean, how many did you say will be taking the exam, the bar exam in July?
We anticipate about 100 will be taking first-timers. It's hard to know how many repeaters will be participating because we don't get that information directly. We only know after the results come out.
Okay, thank you.
Dean, before we move on, the testing formats that are used by the current professors, particularly in the bar-related courses, do they utilize same format, multi-state bar exam? So the students would be a little bit more acclimated to it. I remember in the olden days when I was in most of my bar-related professors incorporated, particularly in the first year in the bar courses, subsequently. Some of them gave exams, graded them, but it didn't count. They were sort of like practice exam for the, as we would call them back then, one-shot Charlies that you took at the end of the semester, but it got us acclimated to the format that we would face not only in law school, but in that most important part, bar exam. What is the current testing format that our professors are utilizing now?
Well, part of that will be addressed in Dean Jackson's report in more detail.
Okay.
But the essence of that, and thank you for asking that question, because it is a point that I do want to stress, because I'm somewhat excited about this, not only as a dean but also as a professor. That one of the things that we've been able to do as a result of our partnership with Barbary and with bar presenters is accessing question banks that we then make available to our faculty, so that when faculty design their exams, they're able to design their exams to include questions that are styled after the MBE. And we have had a growing number of faculty who've taken advantage of that. And so I think that as we look at our exams now, we're seeing that students are being exposed probably more than ever before to MBE style questions as well as essay style questions.
What percentage of the faculty is taking advantage of it?
I don't know how many we've had. Is it again? Professor Jackson has has been tracking that, but right now it looks like over 50% of the faculty taking advantage of it.
Trustee Lawrence?
So I'm not on the committee, but subject interest a lot. Number one, how many total law students?
We currently have, without the current count, I think is 70. Yeah, I think it's about 470.
So there are 155 per class or so.
Roughly about a third of those will be in the evening.
Okay, and the 100 you give us for July, where are the rest of them? That we're missing now 50 other students. What are they doing?
Well, we have significant numbers of students who are not taking the bar in Florida. They may take bars in other states.
How many is significant?
Is
that 20?
I imagine it's about 20 or so that will be taking bars all across the country. Probably the jurisdictions close to us are the ones where they go to the most, or South Carolina, but from California to New York, they will be doing that. We also have numbers of individuals who are not taking the bar exam at all. Because career-wise, they don't need to do that, or for other reasons, they're delaying taking.
And the number who take the percentage that we have, is that a typical law school percentage? If
Yes,
I went
very
to
typical.
UM or FSU
Very
or
typical.
UF?
Very typical.
And then has this classically been the same percentage if I go back years?
It holds, yes, that percentage holds pretty much over an extended period of time. It may go up and down a little bit. Essentially, that is. The other,
So, Mr. Dean?
yes.
Dean?
Yes.
This is
Trustee
Trustee
Woody, go
Woody. Out of the students that taking the bar exam in other states, are we capturing whether they pass or fail?
Well,
Is that part of the number? Is that part of the percentage?
Well, it is difficult because states, there's no requirement that states report that information to the law schools. We get them on a voluntary basis, and it trickles in very slowly. I just got California's last week, or February. So we don't have a comprehensive list of how they're doing in other states. We only know when the states inform us.
So, Mr.
Yes.
Dean, my second question is that could you provide us with some information on for the last 5 years, just say the last 5 years, the number of students that have taken the exam and the pass failure rate?
Yes.
Thank you.
If we can go back, I have some, and let me know if this goes back far enough for you. 5 years would take us to 2013. In 2013, our pass rate overall, and that's counting, and I assume you're asking for both the February and July combined, or as opposed to February separate out.
Yes.
In 2013, combined, our pass rate was 73%. The state average at that point was 78%, and that kept us within the ABA required 15%.
So in 2013, you said it was 70?
2013 was 73%.
73.
Right, and the state average was 78.
So you have it. What about 2014?
2014, our pass rate was 73.2%. The state average was 72.1%.
15.
In 15, our state average, our average for the year was 66.4%. The state average was 67.8%.
And 17 was 36.7%.
Well, 2016, if you want 2016,
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, 2016, our average was 54.4%. The statewide average was 65.7%.
Okay.
And in 2017, 2017 we only 2017 was 49.6% was our average. The state average was 67.9%.
Thank you, sir.
Trustee Lawrence?
Mr. Chair.
One more question.
Then be followed up after lunch by, I believe, Chair Lawson. Trustee Lawrence?
So, 2 of my 5 children are lawyers, and they took the Barbary exam, or the
Prep.
Yeah.
prep, exactly. What percentage of your students do that? And I assume cost might be a barrier for a bunch of folks to be able to take that, and thus they are at some disadvantage when they don't spend that money.
Well, there are, and I assume you're asking about the percentage of students that take a bar review course, because
Yes,
there are 2 major providers, Barbary and Kaplan. There are a couple of other providers as well.
And would Barbary and Kaplan pretty equivalent quality?
Yes, I think they are recognized as certainly the 2 most popular programs and probably have the longest track record of success.
And so what roughly does that cost to do?
I think that's running about 4,000.
Okay,
Yeah, about
say in the
3,700,
South,
about $4,000 a year.
that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Now, we just a little bit of history on that, and that's something, an issue during my first term around as dean. We had addressed that in terms of, in essence, negotiating a group rate for students. And there were some problems ultimately with the DOE perception of use of money in that fashion. But what we've done this year, and again, I don't want to keep taking from Dean Jackson's presentation, soon we'll be left. But one of the things that she'll touch on is that we currently have an arrangement with Barbary, where Barbary provides us with substantial support for our preparation efforts throughout the academic year. Materials, the questions that we've been talking about, diagnostic tools to start preparing students for the bar exam from year 1. And for those students who participate in that program, if they decide to take Barbary as their bar review course, there is a substantial discount to them. For this year, it's over $1,700 discount for this year, and that increases with each year. And we hope to get to a point where individuals, in essence, will be able to take the Barbary course at no cost.
I'm only guessing, as a matter of logic, that $1,700 is still a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yes.
And that folks feel sometimes, I can't afford it, and I've already got a whole bunch of debt. And I'm wondering what the incidence of using Barbary or the equivalent is, and I'll bet there is a correlation between those who take a bar reviewed course and passage.
Well, I can tell you, based on experience with certainty that those who do not take a bar review course are not successful at a high rate. Now, the good news is that the efforts that we've made over the past few years, there are very few, if any, students who do not take a bar review course. The challenge has been, when we talk about our program, which is the so-called BEST program, that's not the substantive bar review course, that's just exam taking skills and preparation. But I think we have moved ahead to the point where I receive, and certainly since I've been back since last year, I've received no students saying, I'm not taking a bar review course because I can't afford it.
And just one last question. Made me think that Kaplan and Barbary are the high quality providers. So how many of them are taking Barbary or Kaplan? What's the percentage of those? If I could take another one, it's not as good, not gonna help me.
Well, I'm in this forum. I'm not going to comment on the on some of these other programs.
But isn't that a fundamental?
But Barbary and Kaplan are considered the best courses.
If we are trying to have the highest number and percentage of folks passing the bar exam, then that becomes a fairly important ingredient.
The vast majority of our students take Kaplan, either Kaplan or Barbary, and that's going to be in excess of 85%. There are some who take the other, and some of the other companies, I think there are at least one, maybe two other providers, have a share, and they report some success with their students. But the Kaplan Barbary accounts for a very high percentage of our students taking bar review.
I guess I would be saying 85 is on top of 100.
Right.
And I would say that I would want to know if we're trying to get it from 66 to 76 to 85 to perfection.
Right.
We at least ought to strive for that. Then is there a coterie, a cohort that is of X number that might have some significance, need to be further encouraged by incentives or whatever else to be
I would certainly say that there is a number there that certainly need to be encouraged. And we provide, of course, information on the programs and as much direction as we can. There are students, of course, who are going to make choices, and despite the information that we provide to them, the other companies have representatives that contact our students. They give those students their own statistical breakdown spin. But I think that what we do is point out the success of these two programs. And again, particularly when we have, and this is a new initiative that we have with Barbary, when we have this set up with Barbary now, where for students who must take our...
I think Trustee Lawson has a question. Does that answer your question, Trustee Lawson? Trustee Lawson?
Yes, sir. Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. You know, I was just listening in, and I think there's probably more to the discussion that needs to be presented. But, you know, the passage rate has been an ongoing issue, right? And we've talked about several root causes, but we also talked about one thing that we know has a pretty significant impact on passage, and that's these prep courses. And you know, the dean probably has an opinion on which one's better than another, but you know, that's not the issue. I guess the question is there a creative way to adjust our curriculum to include these passage courses of some type into our curriculum, such that when I'm borrowing money to go to law school, or I'm getting my financial aid to go to law school, this course is baked into what I'm paying for. So I get this course to, you know, which gives me a better shot at improving my passage rate at the end of the day. and it's not something I have to come out of pocket for at the end of my law school career, but it's kind of baked into my, couple year experience there. And as I, get my funding to go to law school, I have kind of already financed this in whatever way I'm getting my funding. So it's not a end of, career, go home and, ask someone for $1,800, which is probably not going to go over well. So Dean, I'd ask you to think about that from the standpoint of, because the current passage rates are not where we want to be. And I think we need a step change in how we are looking at this and how we are doing things, because, we've had you guys in front of us a lot over the last couple of years, and I appreciate, you're continually looking at ways to improve, but this passage rate issue is one that we really got to get our arms around. And I know that there's a cost element, but I guess I'm asking, is there any violation of any kind of state law or whatever for us to bake this into our curriculum and make some of these, I've heard a lot about optional things both for students and faculty, and make some of these mandatory.
Chairman Lawson, a couple of years ago when the bar passage rate was up, Dean was Dean at that time, the first time around, we did have that fee baked into it. I can't remember the cause, but there was a reason why it was taken out. I think a year before last, we left that line item in our budget, but there was we didn't put any funding there, but we left the line item, so if we got funding, do it. But Dean, if you can just briefly amplify,
yes.
Why was it pulled out?
Yes, let me just briefly amplify, and then I'd like to leave time for Dean Jackson to talk about the other aspects of the program. It was pulled, one of the barriers to that was the Department of Education, which had concerns about those state dollars and where those dollars coming from being paid to a program that benefited post-graduation. So that what we needed to do was to be able to spend state dollars on a program for students while they were in law school. And so the Barbie program I referred to earlier is our attempt to come back and accomplish it through that way by Barbie funding activities happening in the law school. We cannot, under accreditation standards, make the bar review course a part of our curriculum. We can, as we tried to before, try to offset the cost for students and hopefully get to the point where the cost is either low enough or there's no cost that this is not a barrier for students.
All right, let's proceed with Associate Dean Alicia Jackson report, and then we can have some comments. I have a couple of comments I would like to make. Dean Jackson.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Perry, the committee, and President Robinson. I'm going to transition and talk about what we're doing to address concerns about bar passage and just effectiveness in the classroom. We launched last year Project Pass. Project Pass focuses on shifting from a post-graduation bar exam culture to bar readiness throughout matriculation. In late 2017, the College of Law launched PASS, which stands for Performance, Assessment, and Strategic Support. Project PASS represents our continued efforts to enhance student learning while strengthening both the core of our curriculum and the overall program of legal education. With a comprehensive approach, Project PASS has various phases, beginning as early as new student orientation and continuing through the post-bar exam preparation study period. The goals of Project PASS: first, to enhance students' overall academic performance and experience while optimizing their chances of success on the bar exam. Next, to increase the use of formative assessment, not only in first-year courses, but throughout the curriculum. And formative assessments is really something interesting and somewhat new to law schools in a sense, because as the chairman pointed out, generally law schools administered an exam at the end, and you either sink or you swim. Well, right now, there's this movement in legal education probably 10 to 20 years behind other disciplines, to move forward and focus on administering formative assessments throughout the semester. That includes low-stakes assessments that don't necessarily count for points, but nevertheless provide the opportunity for students to practice their skills and receive feedback from the faculty member. Next, PASS creates an infrastructure for us to measure whether or not we're meeting the stages of the continuous cycle of learning, which is extremely important. We simply didn't want to throw something up in the air and hope it sticks. But best practices for legal education and otherwise focuses more on this continuous cycle of learning. The cycle focuses on what do students need to know, understand, and be able to do. How do we effectively ensure that all students are learning? How do we know they're learning? And what we do with the information that we gather about our students. The goals and objectives of Project PASS: to increase the first-time bar passage rate, establish a bar readiness culture starting the first day of law school, identify and provide additional assistance to at-risk students early in matriculation. That is an item that we're focusing heavily on, identifying who our students are at risk and then responding to the needs of those students. Increase the use of those formative and summative assessments, and most importantly, feedback. We want to be able to respond to students to help them close those gaps in their learning and to provide comprehensive academic support. How do we do that? We're doing it through our summer post-admit program. We are relaunching our SCALE program, which focuses on the bottom quartile of admitted students. I'll talk about it more in a moment. We're also doing it through an extended new student orientation. Unlike years ago when there was this one-day orientation where we simply talked about where to park your car, where to find your locker, we actually focused on academic skill building before the rigors of law school began. A teaching and educational partnership with Barbary, you've heard quite a bit about that from Dean Purnell. I'm going to talk about why that's so important to us. Academic advising and academic enhancement plans is a new feature. In 2017, we hired an academic advisor, and that advisor specifically creates an academic enhancement plan for students that she works with. Small sections for designated first-year courses. Some courses may have an upwards of 60 to 70 students. We have decided to specifically assign small sections so that our students get more individualized assistance. And of course, increase the use of diagnostics in those assessments throughout our program of legal education. So now let's look at each of those things. And before just talking about it, I want to focus on the goals and objectives. Again, we simply didn't want to just create something. We first wanted to outline what our goals were. That summer post-admit program, it's actually called the Summer Comprehensive Academic Legal Enhancement. We refer to it as SCALE. The goal is first and foremost to reduce attrition for this cohort of students, and it's a cohort of students in particular with objectively quantifiable credentials that were of concern by the ABA. We want to familiarize and better prepare students to succeed in law school, expose students pre-matriculation to the critical, analytical, and study skills necessary to be successful law students, administer diagnostics to assess their skills, again, early and before matriculation actually, increase a focus on critical skills that are linked to poor performance on the LSAT in law school and on the bar exam. This program is aimed at the bottom quartile of the entering class. Again, these students are already admitted. It's free of charge for students. It's a 2-week program from this year from July 9th through the 20th, 2018. There are daily formative assessments that take place during this 2-week program. The classes are taught by faculty members, and we focus specifically, again, on those critical skills that students are experiencing difficulty with: critical reading, problem solving, reasoning, and law school study skills.
Quick question, what
Yes, sir.
percentage of those students will be taking part in that program in July? Do you have any idea?
Yes, sir. We have invited 30 students right now fall into that quantifiable bottom quartile. We've invited all of them. As of today's date, about 50% of them have registered. We're also reaching out on Friday to do telephone calls and follow-ups. We are aggressively reaching out to those students. We're also stressing to them the fact that we're vested in this program. We're providing for the first time free housing, meals. We're trying to do everything we can to get the students enrolled in this program. Housing, meals, and a book scholarship will be provided to participants. The beauty of this program is that we're going to gain information from these students. We're going to know exactly what they need, and we're going to create a plan for them that can be integrated throughout their first year of law school based on the diagnostics that we administer in the program. Next, our new extended student orientation. It's called Foundations for Law School Success. We actually administered Foundations fall 2017, and it was a big hit with the students, extremely successful in the sense that we were able to identify again early students who were in need of additional assistance. Identify at-risk students early in matriculation, goal 1. Expose students to critical skills necessary to be successful. Provide student services and academic workshops to aid in students' transition to law school, which is a big difference for students coming to law school. We're helping them to bridge the gap from either their undergraduate experience or prior educational experiences. Also to provide early exposure to the rigors of law school. We're doing this, it's mandatory for all new students. This is mandatory, it's not optional. All new students must arrive to campus 2 weeks before the first day of the fall classes to participate in this program. It was launched last fall. It's available this year, August 1st through the 13th, 2018, and our fall classes start on the 15th. It's a 10-day orientation. There are writing diagnostics and assessments administered daily in this program. It's again taught by the faculty, focusing on grammar and writing skills, legal studies skills, critical and analytical skills. We're very intentional about what we teach in this program. We're actually following the cycle. What we've learned about our students is that these are the areas that they struggle the most in, and we're trying to address those areas pre-matriculation. Next, our educational partnership and resources. The goal was to provide up-to-date bar preparation materials to be integrated during law school, including those bar exam style questions, access to diagnostic tools to aid in identifying upper-level students that are at risk as well. One of the things that law schools have learned is that we focus so much on first-year students that the second-year students fall through the cracks. So we've actually administered a diagnostic to our upper-level students, providing enough time for us to provide immediate remediation before they graduate and take the bar exam. Access to formative and assessment tools for both students and faculty. That's really important. So it's not just about getting the tools in the hands of the faculty, but also to our students. We also, one of the goals was to receive real-time data and analytics on our student performance. And last, to equip faculty with bar exam style questions that can be incorporated directly into their courses and assigned to students for additional practice and review. We partnered with Barbary, a leading bar review provider, to help us accomplish many of these goals and objectives. 150 students, for the first time, we administered this upper level diagnostic, and 150 upper level students sat for the exam in spring 2018. That's a significant number of students. The faculty had access to question banks over the last academic year, including formative assessment tools and resources. Over 50% of the faculty, as indicated earlier, requested access to this material. But one thing that I'm encouraged by is the fact that we're gaining ground in that area. I saw far more faculty members request access to these banks closer to the end of the spring semester.
How many faculty members that teach bar-related courses not access that bank?
I would say probably about 50%. About 50% at this point have not actually requested access, but we're actually we're addressing that in a different way as well.
Do we know why they have not requested access?
No, we don't, but Dean Purnell is following up on that. We don't at this time, and he may be able to speak to that.
Thank you.
All students had access to practice questions, lectures, and review materials. We also were able to collect unique data about our students, which was shared with the faculty. We had a session with the faculty at the end of the spring semester in April, and we spoke specifically about the importance of these banks. We also spoke to them about what the analytics told us about our students and how we can use that information to better inform our teaching. We added an advanced academic advising program. This provides one-on-one course selection assistance and group advising sessions. We wanted to target students experiencing academic difficulty. We also wanted this academic advising to serve as a bridge to tie both non-academic and academic programming together. Also, we wanted to identify students in need of strategic support that may not have been previously identified by other measures, such as their income and credentials. We certainly just didn't want students to fall through the cracks. The position was created in fall 2017. It's available to all students with a special emphasis on students who are at risk of failing the bar exam. Every student on academic probation was required to meet with the academic advisor. Students on academic probation in particular received an academic enhancement plan, and that plan specifically outlined the bar courses that they should take as they continue their matriculation. And students were also assigned a faculty advisor at orientation. So not only are students encouraged to meet with the academic advisor, every student that is admitted to the College of Law is assigned a faculty advisor starting at orientation. The small selection courses. The goal was to enhance student learning by increasing the interaction between professor and student, increase the number and quality of formative assessments and feedback provided to first-year students, provide faculty a better opportunity to regularly observe and assess the progress of their students, both individually and collectively, which serves to inform and enhance their teaching. First-year tort sections over the last academic year had approximately 30 students in each of those tort sections, while other first-year sections had double that number. We're adding this particular academic year an additional small section, and that subject will be contracts. So the students will have a small section of torts and contracts going into the fall 2018 semester. We also aided the small courses aided students in identifying their areas of concern prior to the end of the semester. By providing the additional feedback, we were able to provide students with more information about how they are progressing throughout the semester. We also were able to provide assessments, particularly quizzes and assignments were administered in these small sections, and professors utilized the additional teaching tools. To your question, Chairman, you asked about professor utilization of some of these resources. The first-year faculty they were able to use what's called the formative assessment system that's actually created by Barbary. The subjects that were available, the torts professors in particular, every single one of them used it. Every single one of those professors. So our first-year professors are actively engaged in using those resources. What we're doing now is reaching out to our upper-level faculty members that are teaching those upper-level bar courses to ensure that they're utilizing those particular resources as well. But our first-year faculty are indeed using those resources. Additional bar preparation. The dean talked about bar passage, the BEST program in particular. The BEST program, is important to mention, takes place post-graduation primarily. Our focus is more integration, and one of the things that we've done to help, as Trustee Lawrence mentioned, how do we help students supplement that bar review course? Well, the law school was able to provide some supplemental bar resources. Those supplemental bar resources provided early bar review material, released bar questions, additional practice questions, outlines, review lectures, simulated exams. Every single May graduate and repeater were provided access to these supplemental resources from Kaplan and Adapt-A-Bar. Currently, over 150 students have taken advantage of it. About 90 of those are the first-time takers, and about 60 repeaters have access to these supplemental materials. We launched a campaign to engage with those students. There have been multiple contacts with our May graduates that happened over the spring semester to encourage them to start bar preparation early and not wait until after post-graduation, which unfortunately is typical in most law schools, is to think that, the bar exam you start after law school. Well, we're changing that tenor, we're changing that culture to stress bar preparation happens from the very first day of law school. So we've launched quite a few campaigns and initiatives to gain their attention on that issue. We also launched a separate program for the repeater. We have called every single repeater. We have emailed them. We've done everything we can to bring them back home so that we're able to provide assistance to them and optimize their chances of success as well. Both first-timers and repeaters through this supplemental program were provided over 5,000 practice questions, including 1,700 release bar questions, in addition to other resources. To launch Project Pass in January, we did this full launch where it was important for us to get the students on board. So we did this I Pledge to Pass campaign, and we had the students get together, and we did all these wonderful things, t-shirts and all these wonderful things to really get their attention. The students overwhelmingly were excited about Project Pass. These are some images from some of the events we hosted, really to get the student buy-in is essential. You're purchasing the items and purchasing these support materials, that's only step one, but getting our students and our faculty on board to utilize those resources is really the heart and really important to us ensuring these resources are effective for us. And before we get to the questions, one of the things that I did want to address about cost for the bar review courses, with a part of this partnership with Barbary, instead of students paying $3,700, the bar review course was discounted to $1,700. That's a significant savings for our students. In the past, our students have been paying the $3,700. So getting that course down with the savings of over $2,000 has proved beneficial to us. According to a report from our current director, for the February bar exam, there were no students that reported not having a bar review course. So I certainly wanted to address your concern, Trustee Lawrence, about the cost factor as well as the availability of the bar review course to our students, because it is extremely important, and you are absolutely correct. Students that do not have access to a bar review course overwhelmingly do not pass the bar exam compared to their counterparts that do. The course is just that, a review course, and students need that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few comments before I turn to my colleagues for comments. We've been treading this path for quite some time. One of the questions, if there comment, I want to know when time take. While I realize that overall bar passage rates around the country somewhat lower, I also recognize there are raised it. Perfect example of a law school in Southwest Florida. February 2014 at a 30%, while we at FAM 70 rate. This time around, Ave Maria February bar had an 84.6 passage. Florida International Law School they've gone up. I've said this phrase before, I have no pride of authorship. Another institution doing something that works, we need to look at the parts of it that work for us and hopefully incorporate it in our model. Our job, I think, is to have a great law school. We need to have faculty buy-in, not 50%, to do what we need to do to equip these students to pass the bar and become good lawyers. And we need to take a very close look at our curriculum. We need to see what is being taught to our students. We need to listen to our students. Because there is no reason that our law school shouldn't be in the top 4 law schools in this state. I would turn it over to comments from other members of the special committee and this trustee board. It may be time to have an outside consultant at things that can make recommendations for us to beef up, to make sure what we are doing is what we need. Trustee Woody or Trustee Jackson, since you're on the phone, I'm gonna give y'all first dibs since we cannot see your hand.
Mr. Chairman, I totally agree with your previous comments, and I strongly recommend that we consider, and the president consider, bringing an outside consultant to look at what we're doing at the law school. Not only the passage of the bar exam, there's some other issues that I think that we maybe maybe in the future need to talk about it in reference to the reputation of the law school in the general community of Orlando. One question that I have is, do we use the internship as a tool of learning that would help the student pass the exam by being with a certified attorney and working with them either in court or in the corporate area to assist them and familiarize them with the legal matters? If so, what percentage that we have that's assigned to us are internships? That's a question that comes to my mind. So maybe the dean can answer that question.
Dean?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I'd be happy to answer that question. We have, in the past 2 years, greatly expanded our internship opportunities. We have this year over 100 internships that involve students being placed in the practicing field with both public and private sector. We've also authorized the such internships for both academic credit and for compensation, which is allowable under the ABA standards. So that I think that our experiential learning opportunities have increased manyfold, and we're going to continue to do that. In terms of the relationship of that, the bar passes, those internships don't necessarily address the bar exam skills, or the skills needed to do well on the bar exam, but they are an important part of whether or not a person is going to be a successful practitioner. And I just wanted to add a couple other comments, and I know those questions came up from the chair. One of the things that I wanted to mention regarding faculty and their exams, something that I'm doing, which I think is new this year, as I do the faculty evaluations, I am including the evaluating of their exams, so that I'm collecting their exams and taking a look at that. Now, it doesn't mean everyone has to give the same exam or the same style exam, but we are looking at trying to make sure that faculty are giving exams that represent the type of rigor that's necessary, not just for success in the bar exam, but are necessary for law school success. Another point that I think needs to be made is that we have noted with some concern for the past couple of years in determining which students are most likely to have trouble with the bar exam in terms of those students and the academic performance range of those students. And you heard Dean Jackson talk a lot about the at-risk students. And so we have focused a lot of effort on identifying those students who usually are students not necessarily defined by the entering credentials, but defined by their performance during the first year, who are at the greatest risk. When students fall, for example, below a 2.4 in their first year, they get a letter from the dean, and they are targeted as at-risk students. And we do additional programming for them. And just one final point, I know I think Trustee Lawrence raised a question about funding a bar exam. And I want the committee to be aware of that. In addition to the efforts we've made to reduce the cost of bar review, we do have and continue to seek from donors bar scholarships, where individual donors provide a scholarship that meet the unpaid need that a student might have concerning taking the bar exam?
Trustee Trustee Boy had a hand up, and then Trustee Grable, then Lawson.
Though not a member of the committee, the special committee, it troubles me where we are headed, and looking at the numbers, because I'd had them previously looking at where we were versus where we are now. And I think one of the more troubling pieces is to hear where we were not last. Well, we were not last, but we were not first either, and there's a whole lot of space in between, and we all know that there are no awards given out to that spot. The award being for our students to perform successfully and to gain employment in industry or wherever their endeavors take them. I think that greater structure and focus placed on it relative to looking at timelines, deadlines, milestones. I'm also troubled by only 50% of the faculty being engaged with something that we have determined for over the last 5 years that we've steady decline. That's challenging. It's also challenging to see other institutions who have made strides, and if we have not taken the opportunity, I didn't see it in the slides, to look at what those best practices are with the other institutions. I believe and find value in that. Certainly we may not replicate everything, but there are some things that they have done to move forward. I believe it's at a point where board involvement and encouragement should be placed on this issue. We have some critical, what I believe to be external factors or threats that are out there as well with UCF and other groups that are coming right there in the downtown area. And though we talk about retention now, I think there will end up also being a problem relative to enrollment and recruitment. And I think passage rate certainly does factor into that as well. So my comments relative to throwing support behind how do we make sure that we're moving in a direction that we can measure forward moving progress.
Trustee Grape.
It's
Lit, but it's not.
Is that better? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I agree with everything that has been said, and certainly the goal is for us to improve. But as I sit here and think about over the years, we have done well in the past. And I heard the comments from Chairman Perry regarding Ave Maria. I looked at the bar passage rates at the most recent one we received, and there are institutions who are considered top tier who did very poorly. And I think that's always a possibility. I also hear from Dean Jackson all the excellent things that are going on to improve performance in the classroom through matriculation up to bar passage rate. I also heard Trustee Woody ask Dean Purnell about the multiple year passage rates. And I'd like to see multiple year passage rates for Ave Maria, multiple year passage rates for all institutions that have a law program. That is the true story, the multiple year passage rate. Now, we have developed all of these exciting, very promising strategies to address it. But we also have to keep in mind that each year we get a different cohort with different learning abilities, and we have to keep trying to alter the strategies to match the current cohort's issues. So it is a very complex kind of situation to address if we look at it from the big picture. We're all excited in the years that we do very well. And we may not have had any of these strategies in the previous years. And we can't zero in on just the faculty. Those strategies didn't even exist in the years that we did well. So it's a very difficult problem to tackle. I would agree. I think a consultancy may be a route to go, but it again is just another tactic that we would employ at the expense of the university to try to resolve this issue. There is no just it's the faculty, just it's the students, and it is a constantly moving target. And I want us to keep that in mind. Thank you.
After,
Mr. Chairman?
just a second, Trustee Jackson, I think, wanted to say something. He's on the phone, and I'm going to recognize him.
All right, hello everybody. I have a quick question. Hello. I have a quick question for the dean. Have you all tried administering any surveys at the law school, asking the students specifically what areas they feel that they're struggling in, and what resources they think that they need to do better on the LSAT?
On the bar exam.
Oh, the bar exam. My apologies.
As I indicated earlier, I think one of the first things we did after the February bar results was to engage the students, faculty, staff, and alums on what things they see as needing to be done, and how we move forward. And I might mention, I didn't mention this earlier, in regards to our BEST program, I know they have scheduled, they currently have scheduled sessions with graduates and with alums, try to determine what things they have as recipients of our product, what things they see needing to be changed, and what input they have. You know, one of the things that I don't say this to try to sound defensive about what we're doing, because I think that we have done some great things. But one of the things that we want to bear in mind is that in late 2016, a national magazine, we talk about benchmarks, the National Jurist recognized FAMU Law School as one of the best schools for bar exam preparation, and did that looking at the credential profiles, what we did for the students, and their success in the bar exam. So I think that we do have to look at these things in context, and let me just say also that as we develop our programs, whether it's the BEST program or other opportunities, we do and we are in constant communication with other law schools about what they're doing and what they are not doing. And I think, as Trustee Grable indicated, it's very excellent point that we have to look at the multiple year performance of other law schools. Ave Maria, I congratulate them for their 84% bar pass, but they only had 13 students take the exam. And if you look at long term, we have to look at what they're doing as well. As FIU, I think, has done some great things, and we've certainly worked with them and continue to do this. This is not a problem that anyone can solve by themselves, and it's a problem throughout legal education. And I think that it's a problem that we're committed. And I must say this on behalf of the faculty. I know there's been a couple of comments made about 50% of the faculty. The faculty are committed to the success of our students. Now we talk about whether or not 50% have accessed this database of questions, and we are looking at how to improve that. That doesn't necessarily measure the faculty's commitment. And so I think that we want to be sure to recognize that whether it's faculty or staff, throughout the College of Law, there is a commitment to our doing better. Performance at this level is not acceptable. It is not acceptable. And I think everyone realizes it, and everyone is committed to improving that. Can I give you the timeline on when we're going to see great improvement? No, I can't give you that timeline. I'm very optimistic and hopeful about the July bar takers, and I'll tell you why. We have provided our July takers with more resources and more support than any Florida A&M University College of Law student has ever received. Will it be enough? We'll see from the results. But I think it does speak to the fact that there is a concerted effort to move forward in this. And I think that the constructive suggestions from the committee, and if outside consultant wants to make suggestions as well, I think all of those things will be very valuable to us. But let's not give short change to the commitment of our faculty and our staff to success here.
Chair
Okay, Chair.
Go ahead, Trustee Jackson.
Okay, it would be my recommendation, Dean, that you all work with the Office of Assessment to come up with a comprehensive survey to administer to students. I can actually help with this, and what we can do is compile that information, get the data that we find, meet the students where they are, and then present that to the Board of Trustees, and then we can come up with a comprehensive plan of action to kind of give the students the different resources that they feel that they're lacking, or maybe even revise the, I don't know what it is, but revise something to kind of give the students what they feel that they're lacking in.
I think that would be very helpful, and I think that would be very supportive of our efforts to have input. I think Dean Jackson, you had something you want to add?
Thank you, Trustee Jackson. And that is exactly what we've been doing and will continue to do. We administer the LESI survey, which is similar to the NESI survey administered here on main campus. And one of the things that was pointed out about 1.5 to 2 years ago, students desired more academic planning, more academic advising. And traditionally, law schools don't have a designated academic advisor at that level. However, but in response to what our students told us, we hired the academic advisor. So we are listening to them, and we want to continue. And we will. We've established a really good relationship with the Office of Assessment, and we will continue working with that hard-working office to ensure that we're listening to our students and devising plans that are rooted in best practices. I want to say that everything that we did with this PowerPoint in terms of talking about Project Pass, it is indeed best practices. Not only does it align with what the ABA requires us to do, but it exceeds. We are doing more for our students with this effort than any other law school in the state of Florida, because we recognize who our students are and what our students need. And it is a collective responsibility. We are raising the bar with our students, holding them more accountable. We're raising the bar with the faculty, holding them more accountable. The administration, it is certainly a collective effort. And again, as the dean mentioned, that 50% number reflected people accessing the bank. That doesn't mean they haven't used other resources. In fact, one of the faculty members that has utilized a different resource contacted us last week and gave us statistics on how her students are now outperforming their previous performance in that particular subject. So there are a lot of people doing a lot of things. I sat before this board almost 7 years ago. Trustee Lawson may remember that meeting, and we talked about this academic support program that was new and progressive at the College of Law. And within a year or two, we saw amazing results where we went from 25 points away from the state average to exceeding the state average. And with that same vigor and enthusiasm and commitment, we want to get back to where we were. But it is indeed a moving target. Our students learn different, and that is a part of my job, to educate us on how they learn and how they learn best. And we're going to continue to shoot for the target and do everything we can, but we're absolutely hopeful about where we are, the resources the university has helped to secure for us to make sure that we're meeting those goals for our students.
Trustee Lawrence, and then, Trustee Lawson, then Lawrence.
Okay. Well, good morning again, and I'd like to say that both Dean, thank you for the work that you in front of us, work that you. I'm down in Orlando, and Dean, you're right. 7 years ago, you did come in front of us, and you guys presented a plan that actually got traction. I think my concern is we've not been able to sustain that track, right? And I think that we are at that point where you all plus us may be so close to it that maybe we're not seeing some of the things that we need to take a look at in the form of recruiting, fundraising, community development, really pushing the envelope even back to us on what we need to do differently to get this bar review course put back into our curriculum. Who do we need to talk to? Who's pushing back on that idea? You know, is it a governmental issue? Is it a policy issue? So I think you have, I believe you are on the right track of where we need to go, but I feel like there's still some breakthrough that needs to take place. And I appreciate the work that you guys did today, because that is some of the same work you presented to us 7 years ago that started to reverse the course a little bit. So that has the ability to work. But I just want to try to figure out, how do we make it more sustainable? How do we lift the financial burden a little bit more off the student, even if it's only a portion? Is it some governmental regulation we need to ask them to repeal that will allow us to do this? Looking harder at not just the other schools in the state, but other schools, specifically minority institutions that are having stronger passage rates, and what are they doing? So I feel like we're on that path, but I feel like we need to push harder. You guys know what's happening in Central Florida in the law profession and all this stuff that's happening around the school. And, you know, there's some things that we really want you all to be a part of in that community. So my request to you is continue to push for ideas, to push us on maybe things that you need us to help you do, particularly if it's a legal issue. I mean, around how we have to manage the budget, or how we have to manage the fact that we want either a review course that we create, or this off-the-shelf review course, some way somehow embedded in our curriculum, or some way somehow allowing the students to pay for it a little differently. So push us in that regard. I then throw back to the committee that I put together and the board voted on, and I would ask you all to, let's come out of today with the recommendation. I think the idea of bringing in fresh eyes is a good one. I think the idea of someone that's not so close to the problem day to day to help us assess it and look at it more strategically, to say, you know, where do we want this law school to be in 5-10 years from now? You know, what do we want to leave as our legacy? How do we start putting the blocks together to get there, starting with recruitment, fundraising, community engagement, passage rates? Maybe you want to add new programs. Like, I don't know the answer to that, but it may be a good time to do that, because I feel like you guys buckle down and things get better, and then for different reasons, whether it's a cohort of students or what have you, things slide again, and you tighten it up and things, you know. So we're kind of going up and down, and we'd like to see you get to a more steady state. So, Mr. Chair, I just ask that your committee give us, you know, something that we can latch on to as far as a next step, because I do feel like, you know, Nadine said it best, there is committed faculty at the school, and maybe there's some things that we just all need to align around to focus on to get better, because at the end of the day, we want the graduation rates to improve. Quite frankly, I'd like to see the school get bigger. I'd like to see us more engaged in the law community as a whole in Orlando and the Southeast. I'd like to see us, you know, when the test scores come out, I'd like to see us in the top third, you know, on a regular basis. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity. You guys have a beautiful building in Orlando. You have great facilities. And I just think there's a real opportunity for us to do more and play, you know, play above our weight, so to speak, you know, when it comes to the profession. Yeah.
Trustee Lawrence.
So just briefly, number one, I support the idea of an outside consultant. I think it'd be a smart and wise thing to do. The other thing I'd say is, and it's sort of been touched on, You actually, both of you, give me great confidence that we are on the right track. I think you've made an outstanding presentation. I think you'd agree we're not at the promised land, but it feels like we're moving toward it and come away very encouraged.
Let me say this. I don't apologize for asking the tough question, because I care very dearly about this university and this law school. I've seen what this dean has done in the past, and I realize that he left that position and was out of that position several years. My intern, who graduated and was in the February bar, passed it the first time, and we chatted the 3 days a week he showed up in my law office. And one of the things he told me was the best program was a very good program. I realize also that a dean is only great as his supporting cast. I also recognize that a supporting cast and the dean and the students have to be pulling in the same way. I know the Orlando community. I spent 25 years as a circuit judge and 18 as the chief judge. I've been in the private practice of law 4 years, and I spent 11 years as an assistant state attorney and ran the state attorney's office as chief assistant. So I know the Orlando community. I live there just like the two of you. And what I want is I know that we have greatness there, and I want to achieve that greatness. And one of the things I've found out in my travels, and if you've ever dealt with judges, and I had to supervise 64 of them, every 4 years I would bring in an outside consultant to look at how we did things. And the reason being is when we steadily look in the mirror at each other every day, there's just certain blemishes we don't see. There's certain things that we don't notice. And something magical sometimes happens. When someone tells you something, then all of a sudden you have some buy-in and you can rechart your course. All game plans must change. All of the great football coaches go into a game with a game plan, but it is the coach who makes those adjustments at halftime that is able to be successful. And what we want, and I think what this board wants, is we want this thing to be successful. The end result was there was a school that was created when Virgil Hawkins was denied admission to the University of Florida's law school. And this school disappeared. And through the work of people like Senator Thenia Joyner and others, this school reappeared. Dean Purnell did an excellent job in pushing that bar passage rate up. He did certain things, but in order to maintain greatness and achieve the greatness that we have to be able to make halftime adjustments. And I will never apologize, and I will never back down from asking hard and tough questions. That's just my personality. That's just the way I am. And I guess that's why I lasted 18 years as chief judge of the 9th Judicial Circuit, because I dared to ask the tough questions and push my colleagues, and I will continue. I don't say that much, very soft-spoken person, but I will open my mouth when I feel like I need to. So I think that what I've heard here, I'm encouraged. But I think we need to take that second step to make sure we're doing everything we can to do as a board to set policy. We don't run things, we set policy. To make sure that we're, as a team, everybody's doing what we need to do. And those are my comments. So, members, is there any motion that anyone would like to make?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we look in hiring an outside consultant to look at the law school.
And make sure that we attach to that we have to be sure that it's within our budget. And President Robinson?
If I may, I was just going to save you some time and some formalities.
Thank you.
Around this matter. I think we have clearly heard that, you know, we agree that some external set of eyes taking a look, providing a different perspective would be of some utility, and we will take that action on our own accord, Mr. Chairman.
And there's no need for a motion.
Yeah, I'll work with the provost and the dean, for us through the normal procurement process to make that happen. And we welcome that suggestion, sir, and we think it's very timely. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? I thank the dean, I thank the associate dean. Folks, we're all in this boat together. We're gonna row in the same way. And it is my hope, it is my prayer and dream that the Florida A&M University School of Law will be that beacon that we know it will be and can be. But we all have to work together. We all must remember we must lay aside self and work towards the goal of making FAMU, who sits on the highest of 7 hills, sit very high, not only in Central Florida, but the entire nation. If there's no further business, I think that concludes our business, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
That's all.
Doctor? So, pull up a chair. Ask Ms. Wiggins to call the roll.
You're not on.
Chair Thomas Dortch,
Here.
Vice Chair Dave Lawrence,
Here.
Trustee Betty Grable,
Here.
Trustee Devin Harrison,
Present.
David Jackson,
Present. Here.
Trustee Kevin Lawson.
I'm present. Hey, can you turn the volume up for the attendees on the phone? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, we have
Thank you, ma'am. So I'd like a motion, if I can get one, to approve the minutes from the March 7th DSO committee meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So moved. Next item before us is the Senate Bill 4 DSO implementation. So Dr. Shante Friday Stroud is going to lead us through this discussion.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair on the phone and Mr. Vice Chair, as well as the other members of the DSO committee, visiting Board of Trustee members, and President Robinson. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address the board regarding the matter of the Florida Excellence in Higher Education Act 2018, also known as Bill 4. It has amended part of Florida Statute 1004.28. The amendments address board chair required appointments, travel expense prohibitions, purchasing and acquisition thresholds, state appropriated funds transfer prohibitions and annual reporting requirements, political contribution prohibitions, and change the public records exemption. As a result of the passage of the statutory changes, the DSO organization's policy is amended. And so, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, it is my recommendation that the DSO committee approves the amended policy converting the FAMU IMM number 2003-01 to FAMU Board of Trustee policy number 2018-01.
So, Doctor, if I'm clear on this, this is simply for us to get squared with what the law of the state is, correct? Okay, is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
So moved, Dortch.
And there is a second?
Second.
Further
Question?
discussion?
Question?
Go ahead.
This is Trustee Woody. Let me ask a question. This has to do with the alumni, the National Alumni Association, the alumni appointments too?
So yes, it will include all DSOs, the National Alumni Association, the Foundation Board, the new FAMU Rattler Boosters, and then when the FAMU Research Foundation comes on board. After there's a vote on amending this policy, I will read a letter that the president of the FAMU NAA has submitted and requested and for a meeting, and I'll read that after this policy is amended.
And Trustee Lawrence, in addition to that, this is Trustee Dorks. I would like to, of course, make some statements with us all understanding that this is mandatory by the Board of Governors that we be in compliance, and that this is something that is required by every college and university in the system. But I think there's a way for us to make sure that we don't damage the progress that's being made. So I wanted to be on the record that after we take this appropriate vote, we don't have an option, but there is a way for us to do what we need to do without disrupting the great success of our DSO organizations.
Madam Council, this is Trustee Woody. Have you had an opportunity to discuss this with the NAA President, Mr. Clark? I think there was a meeting requesting that you two sit down and have a conversation concerning this matter.
So,
have you had an opportunity to do that?
Here's where this is Dave Lawrence. Here's where I think we are, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Number one, as a matter of law, and as Chair Dortch just said, we need to follow the law and we need to get right with the law. We don't have a choice on that. Second is a question raised by the NAA and the Lieutenant Colonel, an important question that requires further discussion, and we will have further discussion subsequently, and I'm convinced we can be on the exact same page. We want the Alumni Association to feel comfortable, not to, and we don't want to derail any progress we have made heretofore. So we're all going to be on the same page. But I think one way or the other, we've got to pass this policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Lawson?
Yeah, I think you are correct, Trustee Lawrence, and I am in also a receipt of the letter, and Trustee Dortch, I'm not sure if you have a copy of it or not, and I think that, you know, we can work through Lieutenant Colonel's concerns, because right now this is just a draft MOU, so there's clearly...
It's drafted and ready for changes to be suggested, and so the interim council is definitely to have the meeting that's being requested to address those concerns. One of the things is that there has been a kind of tendency, if you will, in looking at draft MOUs to use similar language across, but then we know we have to make adjustments depending on specific DSOs, and so she's willing to make those amendments. It was a blanket MOU, draft MOU that was basically sent to all DSOs.
Right. So with that being said, my last comment I'll relinquish to the President is kind of along the lines of what Dortch said. I just want to make sure I go on record of saying this, being on the committee as well as chair. We will clearly work with Greg and team to come to a workable position, as well as operating within the standards of our own policy that's been legislated down to us. So I did speak to Dr. Collins as well, so that'll really be our next steps. I think the committee would wholeheartedly agree with that, because we definitely value the relationship we have had and continue to have with DNA.
Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And this would be redundant. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that these are two separate issues. One is the law. That's basically what you're doing, revising your regulations to be consistent with the current law. And the second is how do we work this out with each one of the DSO? And that's the discussion we'll have. The mechanism we'll use is through MOUs with each one of those organizations to have something on record, sort of codifying the new relationship consistent with the new law.
I think we're going to be fully consistent with what you're talking about. Anybody else questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. So, Dr. Friday.
Vice Chair Lawrence. Vice Chair Lawrence, this is Trustee Dortch.
Yes, sir.
And let me ask, and with the chairman's consent, if our committee, DSO, can meet individually with each one of our DSO groups to make sure we're clear, to make sure we have a clear understanding, and as we talk about the MOU, of course, with whomever Dr. Robinson wants to be engaged and involved as we sit down. I think this, again, will work. Chairman Lawson has already, if you think about it, we are ahead of the game, because Chairman Lawson has already appointed trustees to each one of these, the boards of each one of these, and I think it's a matter of sitting down and us working through it, and if we can get the consent of the board that the DSOs will be authorized, the DSO committee will be authorized to sit with each, then we can come back to the full board with a recommended policy approach, a recommended procedural approach, that also with the MOUs, with the guidance from the president, that we can bring something that everybody can not feel threatened, but understand we're doing what's in the best interest of the university. I think we've made major progress, and with this, we understand what we have to do to keep the family growing and strong.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. President, again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were able to have a fairly substantive conversation with the Foundation Board of Directors at the last meeting at the convention, and NAA's convention, and we had planned to have a similar meeting with the NAA, but due to our fault, we didn't have that session. It was sort of a miscommunication as what that was to be about, but we did bring Attorney Thomas to speak with the Foundation Board of Directors on the details of the new legislation. Dr. Friday-Stroud provided more detail in terms of what the board's approach to this would be, but in the end, as Trustee Dortch alludes, we will have to have a specific documents spelling out that relationship with each one of these. And so having some additional meetings with them, particularly NAA in this case, certainly makes a lot of sense.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what Thomas Ford said, meeting you, what you're saying, totally together,
yes,
and we proceed to the future. We're all going to get on the same page.
Exactly.
Okay, great, yes. Thank you. Next item, Dr. Friday Stroud is going to bring us up. Do we need to read this letter, or what do you think?
Well, if I may,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Chairman Lawson?
Yeah, I think we're all acknowledging the fact that there will be a subsequent meeting to iron out the finer points, but the bigger issue is we want to be in compliance with this law, realizing we still need to have some detailed conversations with Lieutenant Colonel Clark and his leadership team and Attorney Thomas to iron out the nits and gnats of the MOU.
So I don't think we need to read the letter on that basis. We've covered it. Dr. Friday Stroud, you want to bring us up to date on what else was going on with Division of University Advancement?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair. My presentation today is going to provide just an overview of some of the highlights of what we've been doing in the division as it relates to fundraising, but also infrastructure enhancement. As of today, or the 4th of June, right now we have $4.01 million. 3.8 million of that is cash, about 200,000 of that is pledges. Now, that does not include the amount that the NAA is going to report out on, I believe, tomorrow. And the reason that that is not all included is because we count the money that we have received in the foundation, and all of the money from the NAA convention has not been transferred and deposited into the NAA. So this total will go up, but I'm reporting on what we have right now. And you can see that I've also want to be consistent in breaking out, giving you all the breakout of cash versus pledges. As we move into strategic priority 4 and the FAMU Rising, we have launched a FAMUrising.com website, which includes a fundraising component in it. And so I would encourage each of you to go on your devices right now and type in FAMUrising.com. I think you'll be pleased with what you'll see there. We are definitely working to enhance our infrastructure and make it easy for people to give. We have 4 very concise and clear strategic priorities for fundraising. They are student scholarships, student success initiatives, FAMU athletics, and the arts and history. We know that we have quite a few funds in the foundation. However, about 99% of those are restricted. What we're looking to do is to try to raise some funds while they are restricted in those 4 broad categories. They're less restrictive in terms of giving us some flexibility of how we can use those. So we are in need of scholarships for students that may not have the 3.0 GPA. Many of the scholarships that are endowed in the foundation right now have GPA requirements, and some have even more specific requirements. And so we want a set of funds that will give us greater flexibility around providing students with scholarships that may have various needs. Also, student success initiatives, such as the Living Learning Community, some of our field research experiences, and other student success initiatives that are going on in the various schools and colleges and throughout the university. Clearly, FAMU athletics, we are working with the athletic department to increase their fundraising capacity as well as what they bring in, so that they can move some of their scholarship funding that is currently in their operating budget, move it off of their operating budget so we can provide funds in those categories as well. And then through the arts and history. So with that, that includes all of our music ensembles, including the Marching 100, the concert choir, as well. When you move to history, it deals with things like the Black Archives and the creative history writing contest that's done through the English department that will dovetail quite nicely with our new QEP right on FAMU. So we are working, even as we talk through the band and their march to Pasadena, it is an actual field research experience, so it's not just the band going out to play. The students will have a research component where they'll have topics that they will have to write on, and that also will dovetail right into our FAMU QEP, right on FAMU. So we are trying to make sure that our fundraising campaign priorities are clearly aligned with the university's strategic plan, but more importantly, that they're simple and easy for people to get their arms around to know exactly what we're trying to ask them to give to. Next, I'll give you just some examples of the campaign and other ongoing initiatives, fundraising initiatives that we have within the division. So we are launching a student giving campaign. Recently, there was the start of the Project Grad, where we would encourage graduating classes to give. We are now expanding that and going down to freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, and grad students. So we're going to start a little friendly competition and create a culture of philanthropy from the time they walk in the door to the time they walk out the door. With that walking in the door, we're also this summer going to be launching a parents and grandparents giving campaign. So as parents are bringing their kids for orientation, we're going to be approaching them about giving as well and contributing to the success of their students and the university. We are reinvigorating the FAMU car tag. So we have a This Is How We Roll campaign. If you've come down Wanish and Gamble on the student marquee, you'll see This Is How We Roll. So really trying to encourage people to get FAMU car tags, but not just here in the state of Florida. There are other states that have reciprocity with us on those car tags. So one of those states and one of the alumni chapters that we're working with is the Atlanta chapter, and trying to get Georgia, because we know we have a significant number of alums in the Georgia area. So we're going to be working with them to be able, so that they can have FAMU tags there in the state of Georgia, as well as some of the other states where people can already get FAMU tags. We are working on a spring appeal that we're working with Office of Communication to develop our communication strategy around this. But in addition to the strong support that we receive from our NAA members, we really want to expand the pool of alumni that donate to the university. So there are many alums that may not be members of the NAA, but they have just a strong affinity to the university as those in the NAA, and we want to encourage them to give as well. We have heard in years past that people don't give because they haven't been asked, so pretty soon they'll be asked often. And often, and in more ways than they care to be asked. And so after a while, they'll just say, let me just give them something so they can stop asking. But we're going to keep asking. We put into place doing some prospecting around high net worth donors, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about preparations for a capital campaign. We've also put a strong initiative on the matching gifts campaign. We realized that in the past, we probably left some money on the table. People have given, but their firms may be able to do matching, but that individual has to trigger that matching gift. And so now we're working with them. So we've been trying to go back to people who are within the window of their company's giving standard to say, okay, if we can get matches on existing gifts they've given, but more importantly, to make sure that we're getting any matching on all new gifts that are coming in the door where appropriate. We're also working on sponsorship packages, so we've been also, again, working with the Office of Communications to work on sponsorship packages going after major corporations, especially those that are business to consumer type corporations, because we have a lot of activities that go on here on campus, and we want them to not only to support the university, but to support those programs, and a percentage of those sponsorship packages can also be tax deductible. We are somewhat revamping our faculty and staff endowed giving campaign. We have done that on an annual basis, and we are going to put a new twist on it this year. Historically, it has been driven around kind of the August time frame, but now what we're going to do, while we will kind of kick it off around that July-August time frame, we're actually going to be continuing it throughout the year and making it a challenge. So we find that everyone likes a bit of friendly competition, and divisions kind of get excited about who's raising more and who's doing what, and rather than just letting that rest in the month of August, we're going to try to do some of those things throughout the year. And this year, instead of having our kind of standard breakfast. We're actually working with the faculty planning committee to host a reception style kickoff event for that in conjunction with the faculty planning conference. So we are looking forward to having a very nice festive time with all of our faculty and staff, because we think when people are fully engaged, that they can gain some buy-in and they'll be more likely to contribute. So we're looking forward to some great things working with faculty planning conference with that. We've also launched a car fundraiser that's a part of This Is How We Roll campaign. So we are partnering with Ford, and we have a 2018 Ford Focus fundraiser. And so we are working to try to get people to donate a minimum of $100 to be eligible for that. So that campaign is running from now July 31st, and then we will actually have the drawing at 12 o'clock on August the 3rd, which is graduation Friday, and so we will announce the winner then. This first one, we are actually purchasing the car, and the next one that we will do will kick off right after that, and Ford will actually be donating that one, and it will be given out during. So we're looking forward to that. We believe that that will enable us to cast a wider net on donors, so people who may not even have any connection to the university, but people would like to win the 18 Ford Focus. Unfortunately, members of the Division of Advancement are not eligible to enter the drawing, but all others are, and so we encourage you to do that. You can do that, and you can text FAMU-CAR to 41444. So again, we will be working with Office of Communication. We launched it, did a soft launch of it at graduation time, and so we actually had a car sitting out at graduation and enticing people. So you'll be hearing a lot more about that over the summer as we really ramp up to that July 31st end date. Again, we have been working with athletics and the Arts and History campaign. So one of the things that we've done is created a text to giving campaign. And so like with the Marching 100, theirs is M100, and you can text that to 41444, and it will donate money directly for the Marching 100. We have, again, the FAMU-CAR. You would text FAMU-CAR to 444. For FAMU Rising, text FAMU Rising to 41444. But again, you all will be getting a lot of communications around that coming out very shortly. And so we'll be asking everyone to connect with all of your social media influencers to help us get the word out and really bulk up our fundraising. And one of the other initiatives that we're working on is our FAMU retirees and their giving. Our FAMU retirees are a very committed group of individuals, and not only are they looking to give in terms of financially, but they're also working with VP Hudson to do some mentoring. So with the incoming freshman class, they're going to be doing some mentoring. So they held an initial meeting maybe about 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, to kick off what our retirees are going to do with that. And so we're excited about bringing them the fold and having them have their own push around not only fundraising, but also giving back to the university in terms of mentoring other initiatives. Next, we will talk about so we've been doing some fundraising trips and initiatives with our corporate partners. So just to let everyone know that we are going to kick off the FAMU Industry Cluster Renaissance November the 8th, which will coincide with Dr. Robinson's inaugural activities. His inauguration will be on November the 9th. So this industry cluster first meeting of this year will happen on the 8th. We have been, and this is just a partial, working with Dow, Southern Glacier, Intel, Facebook Regions, but is no way to downplay any of the efforts that we have with our other partners such as Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and a host of others, Fifth Third Bank, a host of other businesses that are very integral parts of our campus community, but more importantly, that are going to step up all state. And again, a host of other companies that try to list all of them because I will leave somebody out. But we're really excited about reigniting kind of our industry cluster and pushing that forward. And so we'll kick off with that, and Dr. Robinson will be one of our featured speakers, and that is because Dr. Robinson has a wealth of research experiences that, and his research expertise that is very important to many businesses and industries and their forecasting of how they plan to move forward in their businesses. And so we found a lot of traction in that. I know when we went to visit Allstate a couple years ago, the intel that he was able to share with him based on his research, really has some significant bearings on their projections around rates and things like that. So we want to, companies to see that if you start from our president and move all the way down through our faculty ranks and our students, there's great value in partnering and strategically partnering with Florida A&M University. So as I mentioned earlier, we are doing some groundwork preparations for a FAMU Rising Capital campaign. I had a consultant come in and give us some preliminary assessments, and so some of that had to do with our donor prospecting list. So we've been looking at kind of a list, started out with about a list of about 250 high net worth donors, and so when we look at how we tier donors and where they are, we need to, one, make sure that our timing is right and how we ask, but also that our programming is right, because when people give, they give to causes that they're passionate about. So right now I have someone also working with the deans developing one-page funding proposals so that we can go to them with a catalog of, hey, these are some of the funding proposals that we have an interest in. Now again, it doesn't stop them from saying no, I have an interest in something else, but it does give them a good foray into some of the initiatives that we're working on and where we may be able to pique their interest. So we're working on that, doing some assessment of staff, and we'll be structuring around our internal structure within the division. I've had a couple people to leave, so George Robinson, kind of our loan ending major gift officer, his last day was April the 27th, so I brought back on Ms. Audrey Simmons, Smith, who used to work in the division, so the learning curve wouldn't be as steep with someone coming in. So we're working on beefing up our staffing to be able to help us to meet that. But in the meantime, we're also working on technological infrastructure pieces so that we make sure that as we are bringing in gifts, we have the backbone to be able to support that. And then we're also providing training for our staff, and we have some upcoming training for our deans, and that will happen during the deans retreat in August. I also presented our foundation board members that they will be getting some training to help us in this process, and you all will also be getting some helping us to do this. But again, before we come to you with that, we want to make sure that we have all the infrastructure in place so that when we ask you to go out and help us uncover some potential donors to help us ask, that we have all this in place to be able to. So that's a lot of what we've been working on. Now I'll provide you with an update from some of the DSOs, and this is, I will say, a truncated overview because everyone provided me with probably 4 or 5 pages, but I had to kind of shrink that down. So again, we had our foundation board meeting, and it coincided with the National Alumni Association. That was just May 5th. Small Business Development Center has actually moved into the foundation building as a paying tenant. So they're starting to collect some revenue for that. And so they just moved on May 31st, well, officially June 1st, but they started moving in around the 30th and 31st. As of March 31st, our investment balance is currently $123 million and some change, so close to $124 million, and our endowment balance is about $109 million, just under $110. From the NAA, again, they had a very successful annual conference, and at the fundraising lunch, actually presented a check of about $444,000. That was not the complete total, and so tomorrow I believe they'll be presenting a check that will have a total that's a little more than that, because since that time they actually included the online giving and some other sources that came in. So they'll be presenting that check tomorrow. their fundraising lunch really focused on 3 major areas. So the Save Our Students scholarships, the FAMU Athletics Initiative, as well as the FAMU Marching 100 Road to Pasadena. During that conference, we also had an awesome conversation and speech led by our 8th president, Dr. Humphreys, and I tell you, he was more vibrant and vivacious than we can expect. And it was just awesome to hear him and see him, and really to see his energy and enthusiasm. And I think he really ignited the audience there. So that was really, really great. With the FAMU Rattlers boosters, they have gone through the reorganization steps, so now we have the new boosters in place. They have actually been working to increase the amount of funds that are raised for athletics. And when you combine what the FAMU Rattler boosters has done, as well as what all boosters, because the NCA considers anybody who has made a donation to athletics as a booster, they've raised over $250,000, right? So close to $151,000 that has come in by through the FAMU Rattler boosters and general FAMU athletics for fundraising. So we're really happy about that, and we've also been working with Mr. Mitchell and the FAMU boosters to help them also generate their fundraising campaigns and backbone. So with them to do that. And so they also have a text to give number, so we were able to get them those as well. So people will be able to make donations online or send those checks directly to the foundation. Excited about that. So as Dr. Robinson would say, at FAMU, great things are happening every day, and we're going to keep plugging away to make sure that that continues to happen.
Great report. Chair Lawson.
I tell you, just listening to the report is just a ray of sunshine and optimism, and I want to thank our new interim president and vice president.
I know, right?
She's transitioned so well into that role that.
Did you still say interim?
Yeah. But anyway, she transitioned so well into that role. But in all seriousness, this is probably the best and most organized approach we've had to this process in years, and we really appreciate it. From sitting in on the foundation meeting in Orlando and listening to the things that they're trying to do and their plans, and I had a chance to meet with some of them afterward, and their level of commitment and enthusiasm was a little contagious. And I think the job that the NAA has done, and I know they have bigger news to share tomorrow, is extremely commendable. And what Mr. Mitchell is doing to try and pull the boosters back on the table and get that moving gives us all high hopes that we're on the right path with this fundraising machine. The only thing I just sat here and thought about that may be an opportunity for us from a foundation standpoint is I feel like we need to bring the law school into this fold a little bit more well, and you may have plans, and that may be on your agenda.
I actually had a meeting, and I'm not Dean Purnell here, but I actually had a meeting with Dean Purnell and a conference call with Dean Purnell and Ms. Graham from the law school to talk about some of their fundraising initiatives. So they actually are going to have a gala that'll be kicking off, and they'll actually be doing it in conjunction with the NAA during Classic, the Florida Classic weekend. So we are working with them. We're also going to be working with them to identify, so Trustee Perry will be calling on you for that, but looking really at trying to go after donors in that Orlando area. But again, we just want to make sure that we have all of our infrastructure pieces in place as we roll that out. But we definitely think that there are a lot of opportunities there to grow the fundraising effort for the law school, as well as for a lot of the other disciplines. So I've been speaking with a lot of the deans, pulling together different, some of their alums that they know and have contacts with. So we will be making a lot of movement in that direction over the next months. Actually, I'll also be kicking off, I may not have mentioned it, but actually a kind of a road trip tour. So as I told Trustee Woody, I'll be coming down to Gainesville. I told you, Trustee Lawson, I'll be coming to Jacksonville. And the rest of you all, we'll be making our rounds, and we'll be working with you all. I talked to Trustee Deutsch about Atlanta. We're going to be working with Trustee Lawrence in Miami, and all of you all to really look at how do we coordinate our efforts, not only with you all as Board of Trustee members, but also our foundation board members, because in many cases, there are members from each bodies in cities. And everyone I've met, you know, that I've spoken to about this, they're excited about helping. It's just, you know, let us know what we can do, when can we do it? And so we're going to be working on the dates, because I also have to coordinate that with Dr. Robinson's calendar, because, you know, many people, they want to see Dr. Robinson and hear from Dr. Robinson. And so we'll be working on those activities to make sure that we're keeping you all in the loop, but more importantly, helping you all to help us drive those numbers.
That's great.
Absolutely,
It's a big
absolutely,
deal.
yeah.
I think we're on our way. Anybody else have questions, comments? Okay, great report. Great report. Thank you. Any new business? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
So we're going to head to lunch.